In this video, we're going to go over using textures in Maya. Now, when you apply a shader or a material to a new object, you have the ability to change a lot of different attributes for it, one of which is being able to change the color. However, that's usually not enough information you would need to put onto an object to make it look the way it needs to look. And Maya gives you the ability to apply textures to your materials as well to give more information to it. So let's put a new shader, a new material onto this object. So we'll go to Favorite Material, and let's say Lambert. So we have a new Lambert on our sphere, and we can come in here and change the color. And this may be what we're looking for as far as color, but nothing in life really has a uniformly flat color. Everything has some sort of gradation, especially over time. When things get worn down, you may have some scuff marks and things like that. And these are things that you can use textures for. So let's take a look and just see how we can apply a texture to our color port right here. This icon is for applying textures to any port. You can see we have this icon all the way down here, so you have the ability to apply a texture to any one of these ports. We'll work with the color port right now. So if we click on this, it takes us to Create Render Node window. And you can see we have 2D textures, 3D textures, and a few other textures over here. Let's just look at the 2D textures right now. You can click on any of these and it will adjust which texture nodes it will show you. The only reason why I'm just clicking 2D textures right now is just so we don't have a ton of options right here. Let's just narrow it down to the few that we're going to use right now. So you can see we have things called bulge, checker, cloth, file, fractal, a whole bunch of these. Let's just click on checker right now. And you can see that now our attribute editor changes to the checker tab. And we can change the colors of our checkerboard. And now we have green and black checkerboard, but we don't see anything updating in our viewport. In order to see textures in our viewport, there are a couple things that we can do. The first one, if you're using the high quality rendering or the default quality rendering in our viewport, you need to go to Shading and turn on Hardware Texturing in order to be able to see your textures in the viewport. High quality rendering will give you a little bit better detail, and the highest detail you probably get is with the viewport too. With viewport 2, you do not need to turn on the hardware texturing. It's usually grayed out, but you can see it's turned on because we had it turned on already. But still, if you're working with textures, the first thing I would do is just come in here and go to Shading and turn your hardware texturing on regardless which viewport you're working in. Now you can see we have our checkerboard applied to our object, and we can come in here and adjust the colors. And if we do a quick render, let me switch to Mental Ray. You can see that it is rendering in our render view. We have the ability to change the color balance also, which will lighten or darken our texture overall. And we also have this tab here, Place 2D Texture. Now, every texture that you apply will have its own 2D texture node. So let's take a look at this. This will give us a few different options on how this texture is being utilized on our object. For instance, we have this option called Repeat UV, and it's set to 4. If we increase this, you can see that it is shrinking the size of our squares. It's adding more squares. So what it's doing, it's repeating our checker pattern over the square 8 times. So as we increase this, we're just repeating our checkerboard pattern more. You can see the render of it. Bring this back to 4. And we have a few different options. We have a rotate frame where we can rotate our pattern. We have a rotate UV. And we also have this noise function. Now, this noise function will add a little bit of noise. It'll break up the straight lines that we have on our checkerboard, but it is a very, very sensitive attribute. So if we turn this up to 1, we don't see anything happening right here, but if we do a render, it really, really adds way too much noise on this. So let's save this so we can do a comparison. And I'm going to bring this down to 0.05. Let's do a render. Now you can see that's still very, very strong. So let's bring it to 0.01. And now you can see at the level of 0.01, it is just adding a little bit of curvature to those straight lines, just to break it up a little bit. So it depends on what effect you're trying to achieve. This noise value can come in handy. If we go back to our checker pattern, again, like I said, we can change the colors. And if we want to go back to our material node, this icon right here will take us up 1 level. So if we click on this, it will take us back to our Lambert. And now you can see we have our color port and our icon has changed. It's not that little checkerboard texture pattern, it's this one. This will take us to whatever texture is applied to this port. So if we click on this, it'll take us back to our checker pattern. And if we click on this, it'll take us back to our material node. Now I want to open up the Hypershade just so you can see how everything is laid out in there. We'll go to Rendering, Editors, Hypershade, and we could see this is the material node that we have applied to our sphere. So if I right-click on this and say Graph Network, we'll see a visual representation of our shading network. So we have our material node, which is the Lambert, and here we have our texture that's being piped into our color port. And if we hover over this connection here, you can see it says checker 1 out color. So that's the actual color of this checker, and it's going into the Lambert 2 color. And as I said, each texture that you create is going to have its own place 2D texture node. And this is how this node is connected. And this node is able to affect how this image is being utilized on your object. We're going to do a few other things with this material node, and we're going to come back to the Hypershade so we can visualize exactly what's going on. Let's go back up to our Lambert. One of the nice things about using these textures is that you can layer your textures together. So we have a checkerboard pattern, which is green and blue right now. So if I click on this, it'll take us to our checker tab, and we can make adjustments. I'm just going to come in here and take the noise off. So we have our checker pattern. And if you notice on our colors, we are able to change our colors, but we also have the texture icons next to these colors, so we can apply new textures to our checkerboard colors. So let's save this image. Actually, you know what? Let's just delete what we have in here right now. And let's do a new render, and let's save this. And then let's come in to our color 1, and let's apply a new texture. And let's assign a cloth texture to this. So now we should have anywhere where we had the green is going to have a new texture applied to it. Let's do a render. So you can see where it was green, we now have this bulge texture in there. Is it bulge? No, I'm sorry, it's cloth. And we have, cloth has its own place 2D texture node. So we can come in here and we can crank this repeat up, which will repeat our cloth texture. So it looks like it shrinks it down. You can bring it down even more by increasing your repeat. So that's the kind of look we're getting. And now, if you notice, it's not showing up in our viewport 2. If you notice things aren't working properly in any one of your viewports, just try switching to another one and see if it comes in. So using the high quality rendering, looks like it is showing our nested textures. So we can do the same thing, where in our cloth, if we hit this, we'll go up one level. So that will take us to our checkerboard texture. And now we can add another texture to our color 2. And we can add, let's add a bulge. Let's come in and we'll increase our bulge repeats, and you can see the effect that is happening. So everywhere that was blue now is going to have this bulge pattern. So let's go back to the bulge. And we can do the same thing. If we go back up, we're at our checker. And remember, we had our cloth coming through color 1. So we can click on this, take us to the cloth. And we have a few different options for colors here on the cloth. And we can do the same thing. And we can change a color. Or we can take this V color and apply another texture to it. Let's apply a fractal. And then let's do a render. Bring this up. And then so we've nested a lot of textures together. Let's open up our Hypershade. And let's graph this network again. So you can see all the work that we've done and how it shows up and it's laid out here. I think it's a lot easier to visualize what is going on with your shading network this way. So we have our Lambert and we have our checker going into the Lambert. And here is the 2D placement node that will affect just the checker. Then we have the bulge going into the checker color 2. We have our cloth going into checker color 1. And then we have this fractal being piped into the cloth V color. And as I said before, any texture that you create will have its own 2D texture node, so you can adjust how that texture is being applied to your object. Now there's one other texture I wanted to quickly go over just because it works a little bit differently than a lot of these other texture nodes. I'm going to apply a new material, do a new Lambert. I need to select my object. There we go. So let's go apply a texture to our color node. And we have something called a ramp. And if you notice, we have this gradation of color and it's stretched across our object here too. So if we do a render, you'll see we have red on the bottom, green, and then blue. To viewport 2. These are color handles, and we can slide these up to change how our color is laid out on our object. These X's over here will delete a particular color. And if we want to add a color, you just click into this color box, and we'll get a new slider. Once a slider is selected, you can click on the color tab and change the color. You can add, I think, as many as you need to. We also have an option up here for type. This will determine how your color is oriented. So a V ramp is going up and down. A U ramp will go side to side. And then there's lots of other ones, diagonals. radial, box, circular. So they all have different effects. And then this interpolation will determine how the colors are blended together. And they'll all work differently. One other option, which could be helpful, is, let's take a look at this. Just bring it up to a V ramp so we can see. We have this U wave and V wave. If we turn this up a little bit, depending on which way you have your ramp going. Okay, there we go. You can see that it starts adjusting how your color is being laid out on there. I'll give it a little bit of a wavy pattern. And then if we change this to a U ramp, then this U will adjust how it looks. And then we have a noise function. And just like we use the noise in the other texture, you can see what kind of effect that you're getting. And we also have a noise frequency, which will adjust how the noise is being interpolated on your object. This is pretty cool. Change this to red. And we'll change this one to an orange, and it'll look like flames, like a flame pattern. Let's brighten this yellow up a bit. There we go. Now this is all procedural. Procedural means that it's a hard-coded shader or a texture that's put into Maya by default. It's programmed by the programmers, and you have all these options that you can adjust how that texture is being utilized on your object. And that is the introduction to using textures in Maya.